When most of us think of ballet, we think of pure magic, right? It's all about that incredible grace, the romance, the whole spectacle of it all. But like any really good magic trick, what's happening behind the scenes is, well, it's a whole different story. So let's pull back that curtain. The lights go down, the curtain comes up, and for the next couple of hours, you're just transported. You're watching people who seem totally weightless, like they can actually fly. It's this glittering, beautiful fantasy that just pulls you right out of your everyday life. But what's really holding up that perfect, effortless illusion? Well, behind it all, there's a hidden world, and it's one of grueling, back-breaking intensity, of impossible standards, and traditions that go way, way back, and they all come with a very heavy price. So who pays that price first? It's the dancers. Their bodies, their minds, they are pushed to the absolute limit, all in the name of chasing an ideal that, frankly, has become more and more dangerous over time. The ideal ballet body hasn't always looked the same. If you go back to the Romantic era, dancers were actually celebrated for having these soft, supple lines, feminine curves. It was seen as a sign of health, of beauty. But then came the 20th century, and a choreographer named George Balanchine. He completely reshaped that ideal into something else entirely. We're talking a thinner, bonier figure, stretched to skin and bone. And Balanchine's influence? It was absolute. People say he basically created a culture at the New York City Ballet that was like an imperial court, and he was the czar. His vision was law. His word was gospel. And his obsession with this one specific super thin body type, that became the new gold standard for all of American ballet. And look, this authoritarian style wasn't just a Balanchine thing. His contemporaries were doing it too. Take choreographer Anthony Tudor. He actually admitted, and I'm quoting here, "I've actually hit dancers." It's wild. This whole teaching style built on cruelty and control just became the norm. Think about it. Your teacher holds your entire career in their hands. So students were just taught to be empty vessels, to take all that criticism and make it part of who they were. So what's the result of a culture like that? Well, it's pretty devastating. We're talking about a massive mental health crisis. The numbers from this Minding the Gap survey are just stark. Get this, 82% of dancers say anxiety and depression are a huge problem in their field. 73% say the same thing about disordered eating. And the real kicker? A staggering 75% say their schools or companies offer zero mental health support. None. Okay. So we've talked about the insane physical and mental toll on the dancers themselves, but there's another layer here. There's this systemic instability, this precarity that's just baked into the business of ballet, especially here in the United States. And at the core of that instability, it really just comes down to funding. Let's look at 2018 for a second. The entire U.S. National Endowment for the Arts had a budget of about $153 million. Now compare that to Germany in the same year. Germany has about a third of our population, and they spent the equivalent of $2 billion on the arts. That's not a funding gap, people. That's a chasm. It's a fundamental difference in how we value artists as actual working professionals. So what does that disparity actually mean for the dancers? It means a life of constant hustle. Seriously, American dancers are juggling short-term contracts, working second jobs, even filing for unemployment just to get by. And you can imagine all that financial stress just piles right on top of the already insane physical and mental demands of the job. This story about Zarina Stanke, an American dancer working in Germany, really puts it all into perspective. She needed 2 ACL surgeries, which is a huge deal for a dancer. Her state-funded company gave her full sick pay, got her specialist care, and even provided private transport. And it was all covered by insurance. For an American dancer, that level of security is it's almost unthinkable. And this financial stability, it's not just about paying the bills. It has huge artistic consequences too. See, because American companies are so dependent on ticket sales, they tend to play it safe. They stick to the familiar, popular ballets they know will sell. But in Europe, that state funding means companies can take risks. They can commission new experimental work that actually pushes the art form forward. And guess what? That's a huge reason why so much top American talent ends up going abroad. All right, so we've looked at the individual dancer and the economics of it all, but now we have to go deeper to what might be the most embedded issue of all, And that's the argument that ballet's very aesthetic, its entire look and feel, is built on a framework of whiteness and exclusion. We tend to think of ballet as this universal art form, right? But what if it's not? An anthropologist named Joanne Kealanahomoku makes a powerful argument. She defines ballet as an ethnic dance, meaning it has very specific cultural roots. It's a product of European traditions developed by and for Caucasians. And when you think about it that way, well, it completely reframes the entire conversation. And this architecture of whiteness, it wasn't built overnight. This took centuries. It really starts with the French aristocracy, with kings like Louis XIV, where ballet was literally designed to show off the power of the monarch's body. Then, in the 19th century, it gets solidified with the famous Ballet Blanc, the white ballet. The whole point was this ethereal core of visually identical all-white dancers. And then, who else but Balanchine comes along in the 20th century and institutionalizes that hyper-whitened look even further.
Now, this isn't just some dusty history lesson. This historical aesthetic has very real, very direct consequences today. You have directors who have openly said that a black ballerina would break the line of the corps de ballet. You know, that big group of dancers that are all supposed to look the same. They'll say it would be a distraction. This is the exact logic that's been used to exclude incredible dancers like Chloe Lopez Gomes from getting certain roles.
So, what does this really mean? It means that if you're inside the institution, whiteness can be totally invisible. It's just the default. It's the norm. It's unnamed, unmarked. But if you're a dancer of color on the outside trying to get in, that same invisible norm feels like a very real, very high wall. It's experienced as racism. So, okay, we've peeled back all these layers, right? The incredible physical toll, the shaky economics, this deep-seated racial framework. And after all that, we're left with a pretty fundamental question about where this art form goes from here. Because the hard reality right now is that the world is just full of heartbroken ballet dancers. People, both former and current, who have dedicated their entire lives to this art, only to be left feeling betrayed and hurt by the very thing they love most. So, what's the path forward? What's the fix? Well, maybe it comes down to an idea that's actually very simple, but also kind of revolutionary. What if we just stripped away all the centuries of baggage and said this? A ballet body should just be a body that can do ballet, period. And that really brings us to the final big question. Can an art form that is so deeply rooted in aristocracy, so tied to one very specific physical ideal, and built on a framework of whiteness, can it actually change? Can ballet rewrite its own story? Can it create a future that's every bit as beautiful as the illusion we see on stage, but is also healthy, sustainable, and genuinely inclusive for everyone?